TB patients or those who have been treated for TB. Individuals who have been cured of TB cannot infect others. I call on all stakeholders, especially the private sector, to join us in the fight to end TB in Nigeria. Together, we can make a difference. Remember, TB anywhere is TB everywhere. End TB by 2030. Yes, we can.
This Saturday, Borussia Mönchengladbach, Morecambe, this Sunday, live on Sporty TV.
In the half of a nation's journey to empower its youth, a seed of promise has been planted. The Nigerian Health Fund, an initiative born to nurture dreams, to make distant lines within reach. With the stroke of a pen in June 2023, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu ignited a new flame of hope, renewing his promise to make education not a privilege, but a right for all. Already, thousands of students from federal and state institutions have started benefiting from the proceeds as they find the weight of the financial burdens lifted. This is Reshaping Democracy. I am Ignatius Nkwo. The managing director of this all-important Nigerian Education Loan Fund is on Reshaping Democracy to respond to citizens' requests for answers in the organization's quest to actualize its mandate.
I am Lips from Katsina State, so we are curious to know what informed the federal government's decision to create the student loan program.
Well, thank you very much, Esther Philip. The situation that informed the introduction of this student loan fund, I think, is twofold. One is the dire need for Nigerians to be able to access tertiary education. The highest level of education anywhere in the world is tertiary, the tertiary level. For Nigerians to be able to take that final step so that they can consolidate their learning over the previous years to enable them to become the best that they can be. That opportunity, when it is not provided, causes a lot of problems in society. So it is about the provision of the opportunity. Not everybody wants the opportunity. Not everybody needs the opportunity, but it must be provided. It has two impacts. One is that it allows people to be able to attain the greatest heights if they want to and if they put in the work at that level. To be able to, it's not just in this society, but globally. The second thing is that the more people who are educated at the highest levels in any nation has an impact on the socio-economic positioning of that nation. So if you take two countries and one has 90% of its population educated to, let's for argument's sake, say to tertiary level, and another country with the same population number has only 40%, there will be clear differences in the world that we live in today as to the standing of those two nations. There will be differences in what those two nations can achieve. So to your question, Esther Philip, what is the other thing that's informed this decision? I think the administration has recognized that it is difficult for anyone to be able to pay for tertiary education. It's very expensive, just anybody to be able to pay for it. It's really, even across the world, reserved for a privileged few who can afford it. But it's been addressed in other countries in the world by providing loans, student loans. And it's worked very, very effectively. It is done for those. The UK, for example, provides student loans. US provides student loans. There are many countries where the government has intervened, recognizing that education is precious and priceless. So I think it's those two things.
Yusuf from Katsina State. What are the eligibility criteria for students to access this loan, and what documents are needed for this application?
Okay. So in terms of the eligibility criteria, so these are prescribed by law. The law says that the students who apply for this loan can only get it if they have a national identity number. In other words, they must be Nigerian, have gained that admission through JAMB. So there's a proper process by transmitted through the banking system to 100% of the study fees that the institution, that the individual who's applying for the loan is attending. So I'll give you a couple of examples. If someone is studying sociology at the University of Maiduguri, there is a fee attached to that figure. This might be 5 years, and the course fee might be different. We will cover that 100%. So there isn't a prescribed figure. It depends on at a particular institution for 5 years at 100,000, it's 500,000 that they're entitled to. But bear in mind that institutions can change their fee charges. We will cover it 100%. On top of that, we give a monthly stipend for 12 months for the period or for the session. Today, that figure stands at 20,000 naira per month. It can change because, we live in an environment where, there is inflation like everywhere in the world. But today, to answer the question very simply, we cover 100% of the course fees for the individual, and we pay a stipend of 20,000 naira per month for a session, which technically is a year.
My name is Mujahid Abdul Wahab from Maiduguri, Borno State. My question goes like this to the MD, sir. Regarding the student loan, so what is the interest rate? And secondly, what is the penalty for late payment?
Okay, thank you. So the law allows NELFund to charge interest on the loans. So we are allowed to charge interest. Today, we have chosen not to charge interest. So the interest rate on the loans for people who are applying today is 0%. We will maintain that for the entirety of the course. So if a person applies today, it's 0% interest. If they come back for their 200 level, it remains at 0% interest. In the future, we might change the interest rate, but not for those who've applied now. We will follow through on the promise that takes it all the way through to the end of the program or the end of the course. The loan needs to be paid back. It can only be paid back if the person who took the loan is earning an income. So the provision in the law is that nobody, absolutely no one, is required to start paying this loan back until 2 years after they have completed their NYSC. Now, what does this mean? If a person completes their NYSC and 2 years later they're due to start paying the loan back, if they don't have a job, they don't pay back. NELFund doesn't come after people who don't have a job, who don't have gainful employment, to come and pay back. What we say is that at that 2-year point, you inform us that you still haven't got a job. As NELFund, we will try to connect you into work. We will try to connect you into jobs, because it's in our best interest for you to get a job or for the student to get a job. Additionally, the obligation is not on the individual to pay back. The obligation is on the company or the employer to take 10% of that person's income and pay it back to NELFund. That's where the obligation sits. I'll give you a small example of how that could work. A person 2 years after they've completed the NYSC get a job. They get a job, the employer, by going to the register, sees that such and such a person has a job. If they're earning 100,000 naira a month, the employer will take 10,000 naira and pay it back to NEL Fund. That's how it works. If that person loses that job for any reason, let's say 6 months down the line, the payments stop and nobody goes after the student, nobody goes after the loanee. There is only one exception to that. If the person is self-employed, in other words, they're employing themselves, then there is an expectation that they will voluntarily make those payments. If they don't, then we will treat them the way we treat an employer who doesn't make the remittance. We will probably go after them. Just so that you know as well that we do ask for a mandate that allows us to have access to the accounts of those who are taking these loans. And if we find that large amounts of money are going into the account and the person is saying that they haven't got a job or they haven't got an income, we reserve the right to take what is owed to NEL Fund and pull it back out of the bank account into the NEL Fund account. One last thing I should say. I said 2 years after NYSC. It's important to point out that if a student, a loanee, wants to pay their loan back the day after they graduate, whilst they're studying, when they have money, before that 2 years, before they even do NYSC, they're welcome to pay back.
My name is Dr. Inibaraton Priye. I'm calling from Bayelsa State. MD, are there quota for each state and plans to modify or increase the amount that is involved for the student loan across the country? Bayelsans, we are interested to know really what will become to us. The reason is there are migrant fishermen, there are visas. So how will they key into the process?
What we have decided to try to ensure that people from across the country